Well, now to the foreign property buyers flying in and out of Australia, loaded with cash, forcing prices beyond the reach of local buyers. They do it to avoid a paper trail back home, often making several trips so that when it comes to handing over a deposit or settling, they can do so with cash. Linda Kincaid has the story.
And this is what they're buying.
Sold. Chinese developer bought this building behind me. Sold.
This property was bought for $1.67 million.
Sold.
Flying in with suitcases of cash, foreign investors are seizing a slice of the Australian dream.
We are the lucky country and that's why they're investing.
Karen McKay, Director of Australian Property Buyers, reveals how some Chinese customers make several flights in order to bring enough cash for a deposit.
I had one client bring $300,000 in cash for a deposit.
Is it difficult for them to get their money out of China?
They can't physically take the money out of China. They tend to take 10, 12, 20,000 out at a time. Whatever the minimum is, they're allowed to bring into Australia when they're coming into Australia.
Foreign buyers have snapped up 1 in every 8 new properties built this year. That's up from 1 in 20 2 years ago, according to research from the National Australia Bank. When you're bidding on behalf of a client and you're up against an Asian investor, what advice do you give?
I generally say to my client, today's not the day we're buying. They generally have a bottomless pockets and they just keep going until they've bought it.
In this building, the Hyde Park Residences, a Chinese investor bought a $17 million penthouse.
Dave Platter, Director of Chinese property website Juai, claims many investors combine holiday and shopping trips with house hunting.
Chinese buyers, over the last 2 years, according to the Foreign Investment Review Board, are now buying 75% more property in Australia.
Water views, large blocks of land, close to cities and close to good schools are high on their checklist. Why are the Chinese so keen to buy here?
Land is scarce in China and, everybody lives in, multi-story buildings, so having land is, being something that you're very lucky with.
There's now more than 1 million millionaires in China, a national record, and they're the biggest investors of all. America is their first target. Australia is not far behind. Our main cities are magnets.
The most popular cities for Chinese investors are Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Gold Coast, Adelaide and Perth, pretty much in that order.
It's a win for people looking to sell or looking to rent.
They are landlords, so they are providing housing.
But for people looking to buy, overseas investors are crowding locals out of the market, pushing up prices, according to real estate agent Tim Fletcher.
The vendors are happy, but the downside to this is it could create a market that gets a little more heated than it should be.
Under Foreign Investment Review Board rules, temporary residents may only buy one established home, while overseas investors can only buy new or off-the-plan homes or properties to develop. Property specialist Dominique Corbett from Corbett & Co is often asked by clients to post their properties on Asian-focused websites like Juai. This $6 million penthouse on Main Beach on the Gold Coast is expected to be snapped up by a Chinese investor.
We're getting 5 to 10 times more interest from Juai than realestate.com, so that we're getting, say, 3,100 hits on one property opposed to 340 on the local market.
The Chinese have bought over $530 million worth of Queensland property in the past 3 years. That's up 60% year on year. And these are the sort of properties being bought by foreign investors. On the Gold Coast, Chinese-backed developer RDG is currently building a $1 billion 6-star resort and luxury apartment complex on 110 metres of absolute beachfront. In Sydney, an entire building has been purchased in the city close to Chinatown.
A Chinese developer bought this building earlier this year. They're going to build Sydney's tallest residential tower for about $600 million here.
This $9 million mansion in Balmoral also bought by Asian investors. And earlier this week, an $8.5 million Vaucluse mansion sold to a couple from southwest Beijing. In Melbourne,
off-the-plan projects in Melbourne, your Docklands, your South Banks, South Melbourne.
This humble Bowen home smashed all expectations when it sold for $1.36 million.
So they've bought it pretty much to knock it down.
Exactly. It could be easily subdivided into 2 to 3 townhouses, or they could end up building a McMansion here.
The reason? It's in an area with popular schools.
It's cheaper to send them to Bowen High School and buy a house than it is to send them to private schooling.
That same reason drove the price of this 2-bedroom unit up more than $100,000 over the reserve.
The agent was just absolutely gobsmacked.
The real estate market is expected to spring back slightly during the next 12 months. For new buildings, the influx of foreign investors is expected to boom.
Linda Kincaid reporting there.